Welcome to Alternate Endings.
Half audiobook.
Half podcast.
Full apocalypse. On this episode, we bring you a short story about a possible fate of the human race. By the end, can you guess what happened?
This story is titled The Change, written and narrated by our very own Tyler Chrisley.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. Tonight we plan for peace. With global temperatures at an all-time low, there is a universal call for reason. We will adapt again. Science bless us all. Wow. I've heard this word uttered under my father's breath after every single address since the innovation. That's what they call it in schools. Science bless us all had become the new sign-off message. There had already been more presidents elected based on scientific merit in my lifetime than there were politicians beforehand. Not that he has any problem with it. It just blows his mind how the world has changed. My dad taught biotechnology his whole adult life, in the first part of mine. He would come home from work and tell my mom and I how he was changing the world and to expect exponential growth. Those two words are the reason I joined my dad in his living room for every announcement. Whenever the world seemed to reach another tipping point for disaster, there was change. Global temperatures reach an earthly high. Of course, that was an exaggeration when you account for total planetary time, but not too far-fetched. It was hot, 4 degrees Celsius above the average, and it finally clicked. The world needed to evolve, and so did the people inhabiting it. That's when the first Boffin was elected. It had been a word the English made up for the researchers during the Second World War, and it just stuck. He promised cooling and was rewarded with the White House. Just after his first 4 years, there had already been an entire degree knocked off the average. And this success then, and so on, created the revolution of the scientist. Every kid on every continent wanted to learn. Funding for education skyrocketed, and the world was finding success from every corner. Of course, the Boffin Party was always met with opposition, but they could never stand any ground when compared to the accomplishments of the party responsible for saving the planet. The closest the old parties ever came was after the AI depletion, but even that found resolution. The first change. My dad's research consisted mainly of human growth and development. He could never tell us exactly what he was doing, but told us it was to ensure survival for the American people, and always said it with such pride. For the longest time, this field was mainly limited to the first 18 or so years of life. Conception, birth, infancy up to the start of adulthood. Once the Boffin Party became a common name, it expanded into something much more. Genetic augmentation and evolution is what my dad really liked to call it. People are like computers, and as in we were all ran by code. Each person different, but made up of the same code. There was not a single country that didn't have a department devoted to cracking it. The Scots were the first to be successful in their trials, by making the first rat capable of surviving on bare minimum. Decreased O2 and nitrogen coupled with increased carbon dioxide had no effect on quality of life, while energy use and recycling within the human body had become nearly perfect. It only took a year for the first successful human trials and total change to be actualized. We lived longer and healthier. 200 years became nothing and we prospered because of it. What do you think they'll come up with this time? I asked my father, finally aroused from the chair he had imprinted on long before I was born. Oh, you know I gave up thinking about that stuff a long time ago. That's your job now. I just hope you all figure this one out quicker because I sure as hell am not coming out of retirement for round 2. I know his work is still a sore subject from when the government shut down his project, but I had no doubt his mind races for answers like it did when he first started, especially since I followed in his footsteps shortly after. Yeah, I know, but this one seems different than before. He talked about peace before warning us about problems with the climate again. Doesn't that seem weird to you? Damn it, Kelvin. Didn't you hear I don't want to talk about it? You're not supposed to anyways. The announcement seems to always end this way for my dad. He broods for days before finally coming around and apologizing for it while making sure my intent is still to come over for the next one. It always will be. Regardless of his not-so-coy dismissal of the topic, I still pick up hints of what he thinks will come. This time, he gave me nothing, though, and that terrifies me. I've got no time to be scared, I think to myself, as I pull out of my childhood home. This just has to be jitters of my reassignment at work. I completely spaced telling my dad about it, but in the back of my mind, I know it's for the best. For the entirety of my 20 years at EvoCorp,
I've been in the growth and development program, just like my dad had taught for so many years. Now we mostly run computer simulations on the code for as many predicaments we can imagine, but tomorrow that'll change for everyone. Sleep came quicker than I predicted. In the blink of an eye, I was standing in front of Nova, our project coordinator. With the rest of my team, who seemed far less rested than I. "Good morning, fellow Americans." She started off far too ironically for the anxiety-ridden staff in front of her. "I know last night's announcement must have caused each and every one of you to slightly panic for what's to come. I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't. We've been instructed to continue our simulations while this is handled by nature and climate departments." A communal sigh of relief is heard, as tension is instantly released from the room and poured straight onto me. Why was I given a reassignment then? No way could I work in either department, especially with my father being a top contributor during his time. "This means I want each and every one of you to continue your research. Make the Boffins proud." As the crowd around me moves back to their workstations, I gradually reach the point of returning from my thoughts to see Nova starting directly towards me. I was too busy trying to decipher what was going to happen to prepare any questions about my status on our project. "Kelvin, good morning." "Hi, Nova. Back to normal for all of us then?" "Oh no, you're special today. You can actually come with me. I have a group of people who are very excited to work with you." As we made our way out of what felt like my home, I realized no one else had seemed to realize I was on my way out. The pressure falling off their collective shoulders had seemed to put everyone in their own little worlds, while I'm about to be shipped off to mine. As we made our way through the building, I started to recognize less and less of the turns we took. This new project wasn't something they wanted many people to know about. Before we get there, I just wanted to go over a few minor details with you. Number one is this is top secret. Nova started to break the awkward silence. Secondly, it deals entirely with the problem at hand and the announcement. And last of all, you're here because of your father. I stop for a second, and Nova does the same in unison, as if she could predict what her words would do to me. "Wait, so I'm headed to one of the environmental teams? I have zero experience in either. I don't understand." Nova laughs with a puzzled smile. "That's the first question you have? Oh, Kelvin, you aren't joining either of those teams. This is miles above them." "Miles above them? Hold on. Are we even dealing with falling temperatures? And how does my father come into the equation? He hasn't worked in years and never told me what he was doing anyways." Nova's grin becomes slightly more serious, but it still shows she's excited to string me along for a little while longer. "I can't tell you everything yet, but you will learn in due time. Now come on, we have some friends to make and people to change." As we finish through the maze that is EvoCorp, we finally reach a series of white doors that blend all too conveniently into the walls that encase them. "All right, here we are. Are you ready to meet your new team?" I didn't answer her because I knew she wasn't looking for an answer. I had to be ready for whatever they threw at me. I didn't have a choice. Once inside the first of the rooms, I was met with a series of glances and smiles, each one of them more excited than the next. I can tell I'm the first new addition to this group in a while by the way each person is glued to me. I feel like the prey from every zombie movie, and my brain is about to be picked to their fills. Nova already had a knack for cluing into my comfort level, and right on cue she leaned into me and whispered, "Don't worry, love. I'll ease you in." Before I even had a chance to thank her, she stepped forward and took on a commanding tone. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kelvin. He is here to save America." A thunderous applause erupts from the room, and yet all I hear is silence. My mind races, and I cannot believe what just happened. Save America? Ease me in? I look at Nova hoping she has more to say, but she's already surrounded by her familiar faces asking questions. No wonder she was never around the growth and development department. This was her home. Right as I'm about to make my way towards Nova, in an attempt to guarantee myself some answers, I'm stopped by an older man who does not have the same smile that plasters the other 20 faces in the room. "Get out, now. You don't want to be here." This is all he says before he brushes past me and joins the celebration that surrounds me. I can't even begin to process what's going on. When I came into the room, I looked like fresh meat to a pack of hungry wolves, all planning on how to devour me first. But after a single announcement of, "Here is our savior," I am not only alone, but told to leave. My gut sinks, and all I can think about is how I won't be leaving here again. I didn't have a choice in any matter. I would have been forced here, and now I'm going to be forced to stay, and I'd rather not have to figure out why. My brain pleads with me to make a quick escape from the room in an attempt to fulfill the old man's demands, but my body won't move. I'm frozen, and the Alpha has once again spotted her meal ticket in distress. Nova, what the hell? That wasn't easy on me. Oh, come on. I just had to put on a show. It'll be a team effort. They just love to eat up the dramatics. You'll be fine. For some reason, I trust her for a second, before seeing the same man staring at me again. Why does he have it out for me before I even have the chance to learn what's going on? And anyways, you really will be a key player in our research. There is a reason you've been chosen to join us out of all the other G&D employees. You're special, remember? Would you care to elaborate for me? Kelvin, have you not put it together? I already told you why you're here. Do you ever wonder why your father couldn't tell you what he was doing all those years ago? Do you really think he only taught? My dad. I can't believe I forgot she brought him up earlier. He had to have known he would have a role in the announcement whether he wanted to or not. It had to have been the reason why he was so quick to shut down any questions I shot at him. He never told us what he did besides teach, just that it would benefit the human race in its battle for survival. Nova slowly started to circle me, which once again gave me the feeling I had nowhere to run. And now, you're here to finish what he started in our battle. She finished one last lap around me, taking in everything about me before she walked away and out of the room, leaving me stunned with even more questions. What was it my father worked on? I guess I'm about to find out regardless of his lifelong attempts to keep it a secret. Whatever it is, I know I am about to change the world, and he'll have a role in it. Not even to midday, and it's already been the longest day I've had in years. Without any real knowledge of what it is they want me to do, I'm expected to bring about a change. I only hope I can meet expectations. The majority of my new team headed off for lunch to celebrate my arrival, and I am left alone in the lab. Well, myself and the man who gave me the ominous warning. Hi there, I'm Kelvin.
Stefan.
Well, Stefan, thanks for the warm welcome. You don't get it, do you? It's not you they want here, it's your father and his research. They just think since you're his kid, you'll somehow be able to recreate it. And that's why you need to leave. The change they want to bring would be disastrous. Whoa, I thought we were just dealing with another climate issue. I know I'm lying to him, but it's the only thing I can think of that will really give me any answers. You're not dumb, you shit. This has nothing to do with that. Peace? Yeah, right. We're gearing up for a war unlike any other. Just like that, I was given the information I sought so wholeheartedly for, and I'm disappointed that I am the least bit surprised. I've always thought that people wouldn't last long in success. We all crave disorder to some degree. And what better way to satisfy it than a war for power? Fine, it's no surprise, but I still don't know what my dad and I have to do with it. Stephen lets out a long sigh, followed by a brief silence for him to methodically plan out his answer. Your father is a bright mind. He was one of the first to be successful bringing about the change in humans. As soon as his trials became a success, they moved him here to join our team. They told him he was here to solidify America's standing on our planet. Super soldiers. I see before he can finish his thought. I knew you weren't an idiot. Exactly. The change to back up our military dominance for the past 500 years. They said it would be an endgame project. Lead the world into the greatest period of peace it had ever seen. Bullshit. Well, how close did he get to making them? That's the thing. He had it nearly done. The government wanted human trials immediately, and all he could say is the world wouldn't be ready for such a mistake. He didn't want to be responsible for any scenario to come. Success or failure, it was riding on him. They went through with the first round of testing without consent. Just like that, there were soldiers 9 feet tall and 300 pounds solid. But in all his research, he couldn't predict the human temperament. What do you mean? They went nuts. Destroyed literally everything in the lab and would have killed an entire building's worth of people if they hadn't gotten to each other first. The government called it a success while your father retired. They tried to replicate their future army, but every trial ended like the first. Destruction and death. So I'm here to control them? My task is becoming more and more apparent, and as the veil is lifted, so does any attempt of me trying to hide my concern. Spot on. But hey, don't worry quite yet. They still have to catch you up to speed. And just like that, my new friend was spot on. The rest of the day, I was passed from person to person, absorbing as much information as I could. Growth hormone this, testosterone that, all the pieces of the monstrous puzzle coming together. By the end of it all, I'm given the task Stephen had tried to prepare me for. Control and enhance our soldiers, Kelvin. It's up to you. That night, I'm not able to slip into the same deep sleep I had the night before. I toss and turn waiting for sleep or the solution to come to me, and neither answers the call. I'm told I was given the same sleeping quarters my father stayed in when he first started. They thought it might trigger some sort of mental connection to him, but all I want to do is run away like he did. Even if I am able to control the super soldiers, what does that mean for everyone else? The question circles in my head on repeat until I manage to steal some sleep from the night. The next morning, I'm startled awake by the built-in alarm clock that is mounted opposite my bed. Before I even have a chance to stumble towards it, I'm greeted by a knock at my door. I peer through the peephole to see Nova standing there, already with the smile I was learning to hate. I opened the door, and that was the only invitation she needed to enter the room. "You ready to get to work? We already have 2 candidates prepped and ready to go." "Hot damn, you aren't wasting any time, are you?" If I'm honest, I thought I was going to run a few simulations first, see how they play out and tinker with the code. Oh my, you're right. I should have expected this from growth and development. We'll give you the morning to play around before we start this afternoon. I don't even have a chance to deny her second request of starting trials before she walks off, only to look back and give me the come-along signal with her finger. I quickly change my clothes and run down the hallway that leads toward the lab. Nova is waiting for me outside what I can only imagine is my new workspace, and starts right where she left off. "You have the morning to tinker away, and I'll meet you right here after lunch. Science bless us all, Kelvin." Her final words don't sound like the ones I had grown so accustomed to hearing at the end of every Poffin address. They're menacing, and demand results. I quickly take my new seat and open up my old program. It's entirely familiar, but I don't feel the same I had for the 20 years I spent running programs. This one is for real, and I'm not so sure it's for the betterment of humankind. Thankfully, Nova took the liberty of inserting the current code manipulations into the program for me. The kind gesture only makes the countdown to lunch even more real. No excuse will delay the inevitable, so I run the simulation set up for me. While the program doesn't give a 3D representation of the change, you get used to visualizing it yourself. This is unreal. I can't believe they ever allowed someone to be submitted to changes so drastic and instant. It's cancer, I keep thinking. Cell division at hyperspeed, the 30-minute simulation is set at 1/10 actual time, and my bones ache as I make the connection. This isn't something they want to spend time on. 5 hours. I don't need to turn around to know the voice who broke my fixation to the screen. Holy shit, Stephen. This is torture. I can't program a change that happens this quickly. Neither could your father. He wanted to give the subjects a day. We did give them a day, but it wasn't good enough. After we rebuilt the lab, we were forced to shorten the time. First in half, then again. Our last trials were done in 5 hours exactly, but the soldiers met the same fate as the first. Death. I look around the room in disbelief. Everyone is working as if what's about to happen after lunch is just another day at the office. How can they be okay with this? Stephen, how can they be okay with this? It's a volunteer program. No one is forced into this change. Yet. They're promised the strength and skill of 10 men, and that's all they need here. Everyone here uses that to turn a blind eye to it. Now, if I were you, I'd get to work. They won't take no for an answer. Remember, enhance and control. At that point, people started to notice Stephen at my desk, and he took that as his cue to return to his. I have to fix this. Somehow, some way. I spent my remaining hours furiously scouring this code for anything I can use to help the people risking their lives for their country. I don't want it to end up the same way, so it won't. After countless additions and deletions, my nerves have calmed greatly. I'm almost optimistic about the trials. It's only been a few hours and the program is painting an entirely new picture that doesn't remind me of medieval torture. It's smooth. The way it spreads from limb to limb is more natural compared to the barbaric nature I had before. Whether or not I truly want this to happen, I see the crowd start to gather as the ringleader pushes her way to the front. My fellow EvoCorp employees, this afternoon will mark our greatest achievement. I'd like to welcome our newest addition to the team and the mind behind our altered super soldier. The applause that welcomes me to the front of the room is greater than I expected. These people truly believe one new person is going to fix 20 years of failure. I reach the front, stare back at the wolf pack. The pit in my stomach deepens, and I take a deep breath, hoping to keep myself from sinking. Thank you. I guess I'll start by saying I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope I live up to expectations. Always humble, Mr. Kelvin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you worked on this morning? We are dying to hear about what to expect this afternoon. Well, I started with a basic reordering of how the code goes into effect on the body, to hopefully ease the mind into the transition. I also incorporated a delay on the testosterone boost, which should make it easier for them to control themselves once they finalize their transformation. The way the new information is transferred is less like a controlled cancer and more like a highly specific virus. The code is inserted into the subject's own cells, which should spread more naturally. The room is filled by a monotone buzz that will decide the fate of my morning's work. Several minutes pass before I'm greeted by two young women who I hadn't seen around the office in my short time here. I'm Rosalind, and this is Marie. We accept your change. It only took a couple seconds for me to realize what just happened. This was my job interview, my final acceptance into the program. They never intended for me to start this morning, just to scare me into quick work. I'm immediately engulfed by a wave of congratulations as I'm pushed towards the door at the back of the room, with the words "test field" written on it. Trial by fire are the only words that come to my mind during this chaos surrounding me. Not only did I pass the interview, but my altered code is going to be tested without anyone else giving it a look. Whatever is actually causing the state of emergency has tossed caution to the wind, and now I'm actually about to submit two human beings to an enormous physiological change after less than half a day's work. I want nothing more to run back out of the maze I'm trapped in. I can't help but to think about my father and how he must have felt when he was forced to do the same. I wish I could talk to him or at least run my new code by him, but that won't happen, and the change will. Nova starts off the conversation lightly. All right, soldiers, I hope you know what this day means to the American people. You two are about to take the next step in evolution in the matter of hours. Science bless us all. Both of them salute and respect and walk into another room, separated by what I think is 50-plus layers of bulletproof glass. They take their respective chairs without hesitation, or more than a couple sentences spoken to the person who is about to make them superhuman. Nova, do they know the risks involved? Do they know what's happened to everyone before them? Nova gives me a side-eye, as if she can sense my hesitation. We are going through with this, Kelvin. Each applicant is given all the information they need. They want to be here just as much as we need them to be. Load up the program. Her cheerful demeanor changed from before. I have never seen her this serious, and I know the time has come. I walk to the computer beneath the glass and upload my code to the program. As I watch the lines fill the screen, every muscle in my body begins to tense. If I didn't know any better, I would think I'm in a chair next to them. The last of the code is fed through the system and a big red begin button's on the screen. Nova pulls a microphone to her mouth and begins. Ladies, you're about to undergo a monumental physical and mental change. I need you to both relax and place your arms in the injection cuffs on either side of you. She then looks at me and back towards the glass. We will begin in 3, 2, 1. I press the button, and all I can do is watch. The code drains from my computer into the two women in front of me. The computer withdraws blood from each of them and inserts the code, and then re-injects the serum. I watch as both of their faces immediately turn from those of trained soldiers to pure agony. The change has begun. Nova smiles at the glass and nods her head. This is already a much better start. Good work, Kelvin. You've done your part. Now you can go back to your room and rest for a little. I'll come get you right before it's set to finish. Normally, I would have fought this idea of stepping away from my experiment, but I can't handle watching their pain anymore, so I silently agree. I walk towards my room, and all I feel is regret. I regret not forcing my father to talk to me about his work. I regret not getting away from this program as soon as I knew what they were after. And most of all, I regret pressing begin. I lay down in my bed and let guilt wash over me. It covers me tightly enough to choke me into sleep. I wake up after what feels like an eternity and jolt out of bed to face the clock along the wall. It reads 2100, and whatever relief I had gotten from my bed is gone. My mind races, as it had done the night before. Why haven't I been woken up yet? Nova isn't the type of person to let time slip away. I walk towards the door and crack it slightly to preview the hallway behind it. I'm greeted by a cold breeze that sends shivers down my spine. Something isn't right, and there is no doubt in my mind that it traces back to me. I make my way to the end of the hallway and turn the corner towards the lab. When I reach the entrance, I put my ear to the door and wait. My pulse pounds against the cold wood as I open it to reveal what I can only describe as destruction. Every desk flattened and holes litter the walls. The remains of chaos fill the room, but a single giant stands before me. Where had they all gone? Did they see another failed test and run before they ended up like many had before? Was this Rosalind or Marie taking in their new power? I search the room for blood or any sign of death, but find none to my relief. As I try to make a quick escape, the beast in front of me turns and smiles. And even if I didn't recognize the new body, the smile gives her away. Nova? What the hell happened? I say as my feet slide backwards to meet the wall. Almost, Kelvin. So fucking close. Where is everyone? Why'd you inject yourself too? She lets out a booming cackle and takes a step towards me. Inject myself? Oh no, I would never do something so stupid. I thought you'd done it. Both soldiers docile and complicit to every order, so I let them out, shook their hands, and brought them into the lab. We marveled at your success, each and every one of us admiring your creation with a touch. It only took a few minutes for the first of us to feel it, burning in our veins as we fell to the floor. Then your delay kicked in. An entire staff of the brightest minds writhed in pain as the rampage begins around us. They destroyed our lab and punched a ticket to the outside world. Change, they said, and set out on their mission to spread your code. I know the mistake I made. The virus. It must have allowed for the code to be transferred to everyone they've been in contact with. Not only did I just create a killing machine, but it's now viral and out of the confines of the lab. I run past Nova, and to my surprise, she lets me reach the closest of the holes in the wall. I don't know what I expected to see, but tears fill my eyes as I take in the scene before me. I pull out my phone and quickly dial my father's number for what I expect to be the last time. Son, what have they done? Dad, I'm so sorry. I sob my final words to my father as Nova rests her hands on my shoulders. All that's left is for me to imagine the world to come. My veins fill with fire, and I collapse to the ground. I should have known better. What have I done?
Thanks all for listening. Check out the next episode where we discuss and review this story. We hope to see you there, as long as the world doesn't end before then.
We would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for his music found on Incompetech.com.